Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midland's online worship service. My name is Susan Meyer and I will be the worship associate for this morning's service. A special welcome to our worship leader today, Matthew Pardeter Villarreal. Matt is a recent Masters of Divinity graduate from Bright Divinity School with a concentration in sexual and gender justice and is a candidate for ministry with the UUA. He also served as a chaplain at Baylor All Saints Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas. Matthew and his husband, Gabriel, are currently living in Comfort, Texas. Welcome, Matt. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open minds and hearts because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we are all connected to each other and the earth. If you are visiting us today, a special welcome to you. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. If you have been attending for some time and feel that this is your spiritual home and you're considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our minister, Reverend Eric Severson, or a member of the welcome team, or let us know of your interest in the chat box. If you have a chalice or candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. If you haven't already, please type into the chat box who you are and who you brought with you today. We will include joys and sorrows this morning as we normally do during the service. You will find the participant icon to raise your hand to participate in that. And now we will move to the announcements. You will see them on your screen. Next week's service will be Vote Love, Defeat Hate, Organizing for the Long Haul, led by our minister, Reverend Eric Severson. In the midst of a global pandemic, rising authoritarianism and uprising, the lives hang in a balance and the future of democracy is on the line. In response, Unitarian Universalists are answering the call of our faith, building powerful partnerships to mobilize our communities. Louis Mulford wishes to thank everyone who helped with the fall cleanup last Saturday. To recognize Indigenous Peoples Month of Awareness, Denise Reiling, leader of our racial justice section of the Love Team, is beginning a fellowship read. To start off, she is suggesting Ceremony by Leslie Marin Silko. You will see that novel interweaves many racial complexities. Silko considers herself to be multiracial, of Laguna Pueblo Indian, Anglo-American, and Mexican-American lineage. This is not necessarily a commitment to group membership. It is not intended to be a book club. Participants should feel free to come and go according to their interest in the book that's being offered. We'll read both fiction and nonfiction. All books will be authored by Black, Indigenous, people of color. If you're interested, please email whiteflowersd@gmail.com. The Midland County Emergency Food Pantry Network and Eldersgate United Methodist Church will be coordinating a community Thanksgiving food basket program again this year. This year, a semi-truck full of fresh food will be ordered from the Eastern Food Bank instead of collecting food locally. This will allow the preparations of items to be cut from multiple days to one day and drastically reduce the number of volunteers, reducing the danger of COVID transmission. Monetary donations for Thanksgiving baskets may be made directly with checks paid to Midland County EFPN. For more information, see our weekly newsletter and our Facebook group. Do not forget to nominate an unsung hero for our virtual annual meeting. The deadline has been extended to October 25th. Get those submissions in. And on that note, our annual meeting will be held virtually on Sunday, November 8th at 12:15. More information is in an upcoming issue of the Candle Flame. We'll have a celebration of life for John Lipowitz. John passed away on Wednesday, September 30th. He was an active member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midland. The virtual memorial event is planned for Saturday, the 24th at 3 p.m. RSVP to office.uufom.org for information to attend that. Those wishing to honor John's memory are asked to consider a donation to the political candidate of their choice or to WCMU Public Radio, 199 East Campus Drive, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, 58859, or online at www.wcmu.org/donate. And finally, watch your email for more announcements in our Candle Flame newsletter. It will circulate on Fridays, and if you wish to submit an article, please email Wendy Altmeyer by Wednesday at 5 p.m. to be included in the upcoming issue. If you have a candle or a chalice at home and would like to light it now, please do so. Please join in reading our chalice lighting words today, titled Chalice Lighting for Challenging Times by Lisa Doga. Why a flaming chalice? The question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessing overflowing. A cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst. A cup of wine for celebration and dedication. The flame of truth, the fire of purification. Oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, and horror, thus was the symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be for us in these days of uncertainty, sorrow, and rage, and a light to warm our souls and guide us home. And now Matt will share our opening words.
Our opening words today are titled, In This Quiet Hour, May Our Spirits Be Renewed, by Reverend Gary Kowalski. In this quiet hour, may our spirits be renewed. In this gathering of friends, may we be ready to extend ourselves to those in need and with trust to receive the hand that is offered. In this community of ideals, may we remember the principles that guide us and reflect upon those things that give meaning to our lives, renewing our dedication to serve the highest that we know. In this time of worship, may our minds be open to new truth and our hearts be receptive to love as we give thanks for this life we are blessed to share.
Thank you, Matt. Now with our mics muted, please join Melanie in singing our opening hymn, Meditation on Breathing by Sarah Dan Jones. Thank you, Melanie. Now we will share a story for all ages. Our story today is The Answer is in Your Hands, adapted from an Indian folktale. There was once a wise woman who lived by herself near a small village. Rumor had it that she could always predict accurately when the rain would come, or help heal a sick child with herbs, or calm angry neighbors and help them resolve their fights and arguments. People came from all over the land to meet her and seek her advice in matters both small and great. Her reputation was such that what she said was never wrong, never, ever. Some children of the village did not believe it was possible to always be right. Surely she couldn't know everything. They decided to test her knowledge. First, they asked her to answer questions about the planets, the animals, and the world. No matter how hard the questions, she always answered correctly. The children were amazed by her knowledge and learning, and most were ready to stop testing the wise woman. However, one boy was determined to prove that the old woman could not know everything. Hatching a devious scheme, he took all his friends to meet him at the woman's home the following afternoon so he could prove she was a faker. All through the next day, he hunted for a bird. He finally caught a small songbird in a net. Holding it behind his back so no one could see what was in his hands, he walked triumphantly to the wise woman's home. "Old woman," he called, "come and show us how wise you are." The woman walked calmly to the door. "May I help you?" she asked simply. "You say you know everything. Prove it. What am I holding behind my back?" the young boy demanded. The old woman thought for a moment. She could make out faint sounds of a bird's wings rustling. "I do not say I know everything, for that would be impossible," she replied. "However, I do believe you are holding a bird in your hands." The boy was furious. How could the woman have possibly known he had a bird? Thinking quickly, he came up with a new scheme. He would ask the woman whether the bird was alive or dead. If she replied alive, he would crush it in his hands to prove her wrong. If she answered dead, on the other hand, he would pull a living bird from behind his back and allow it to fly away. Either way, he could prove his point, and the wise woman would be discredited. "Very good," he called. "It is a bird, but tell me, is the bird I'm holding alive or dead?" The wise woman paused for a moment while the boy waited with anticipation for the opportunity to prove her wrong. Again, the woman spoke calmly. "The answer, my young friend, is in your hands. The answer is in your hands." The boy realized that the wise woman was once again speaking correctly and truthfully. The answer was indeed in his hands. Feeling the bird feebly moving in his hands as it tried to escape his grasp, he felt suddenly very ashamed. The answer was in his hands. Slowly and gently, he brought his hands to the front of his body. Looking at the eyes of the delicate bird, he apologized. "I'm very sorry, little one," and he opened his hands and let her go free.
I invite you now to center yourselves and enter into a time of reflection, meditation, or prayer. Today's meditation is titled, "Let Us Rest in This Peace," and is by Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein. Spirit of life and love, we have gathered again out of our separateness to know that we are not alone. In our fears, we are not alone. In our grasping for peace, finding it in fleeting moments, and losing it again to some turmoil of the mind and heart, we are not alone. In our cynical moments, our wondering, is this all there is? Is this the best that we can do? We are not alone. And in our pain, we are not alone. And so we dwell in you, Spirit of healing and wholeness, for this brief time, willing to be held here in an immense and eternal love whose origins we do not know, whose reality is irresistible. It calls us on. It reaches between us to fill spaces. It consoles the grieving, and it calms the anxious. It gives new vision to eyes dimmed by tears and exhaustion. It opens the ear to deeper truth. It makes a place in the heart as hope. Let us rest in this peace and be held here. May it be so. Our reading today is entitled Personal Spiritual Trainers, excerpted from a book called Exercising Preaching, Crafting Intellectually Honest Worship by Nathan C. Walker. When you come to me, come not with the expectation to have some passive clergy person coddle you into complacency. No. Come to me as your PST, your personal spiritual trainer. I'm serious. I want to see you move. I want to see you root yourself in a community built on moral complexity and to hold one another to the ethic of intellectual honesty. I want to see you move beyond the religious hangups of your broken past and use your regenerative spirit to seize the day. I want to see you flex your muscles. I want to see you exercise spiritual practices to the point of training your mind and body and spirit to collaborate as a single, integrated, and dynamic entity. I want to hear you articulate your beliefs. I want to hear you articulate your faith to the point of having some moral relevance. I want to know that you are engaged in the moral issues of our time. I want to know what makes you afraid. I want to know if you are cultivating your doubts and your questions so that when you do take a stand, we can all trust your authenticity. I want to know the intricacies of how you are treating other people. Have you learned new ways to better your relationship? If so, share them. I want to know if you have learned to like yourself. Have you learned to love yourself? I want to know if you feel alive. I want to know if you feel like you belong, like you feel like you matter. Because to me, you do. You do matter. Because you are my personal spiritual trainer.
Thank you, Matt. Let's share now an interlude, Waltz, Opus 39, number 9, by Johannes Brahms, played for us today by Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. According to a report from Research and Markets magazine, in 2016, Americans spent $9.9 billion towards the U.S. self-help industry. By 2022, Americans are projected to have increased that number to $13 billion. What this self-help industry has supplied them with in return have been books, productivity apps, podcasts, workshops, seminars, and retreats led by self-help gurus, all with the goal of imparting some sort of profound wisdom that will serve as an inspiration to consumers of various ways in which they can change their lives for the better. The impetus for the self-help movement comes from the Industrial Revolution and British author Samuel Smiles' 1859 book, Self-Help, which provided the namesake for the genre. Inspired by the spirit of change that the Industrial Revolution had brought about in Europe, Smiles' famous quote from the book was, "Heaven helps those who help themselves." The idea was that, once the individual became aware of their own freedom and autonomy, they were able to tap into their own potential, and the possibilities were endless. This undoubtedly had an influence on 1920s French thinker Émile Coué, who wrote the loftily titled book, Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion. The central tenet of Coué's hypothesis was the idea that positive or negative thoughts bring about positive or negative experiences, the so-called law of attraction that has become the buzzword for so many self-help books and authors. The popularity of self-help materials throughout the 20th century has always been as a direct response to some other widespread societal fear or concern. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People and Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich were a response to the poverty brought on by the Great Depression and the need and desire for economic success. The newfound interest in religion and spirituality in the 1950s brought forth books such as Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking and Charlie Shedd's disturbingly titled Pray Your Weight Away. Yes, that is the actual title, and it is still for sale on Amazon. Cold War concerns over nuclear proliferation and nuclear destruction, the rise of youth unemployment, and lack of faith in conventional social structures all became things that the self-help movement used to manufacture materials to people in a vain attempt to try and help them help themselves. The self-help industry has even embraced its antithesis, anti-self-help. These include authors like Oliver Burkeman and Mark Manson, the latter who is quoted as saying, quote, "The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience, and paradoxically, the acceptance of one's experience is itself a positive experience," end quote. The problem with the majority of self-help materials is that they are a constant attempt to change the conversation without addressing the actual underlying problem. Thinking positive thoughts and thinking that one's life can change for the better is easy if you are privileged enough to be someone who has heard throughout their lives that they are a beautiful and worthwhile individual for whom great things are possible. If you are a person who is considered to be part of one or more marginalized identities, being a person of color, identifying as a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, having a disability, or being diagnosed on the neurodivergent spectrum, among others, it is likely that you have had to spend a good part of your life, if not the majority of it, hearing from other people that you are not good enough, that you will not amount to anything worthwhile, that you do not have the same opportunities as others to make something of yourself, that your mere existence is a burden to others. These negative words have become mantras of themselves that have reinforced these ideas into the minds of people and manifested themselves as shame, anxiety, depression, and inadequacy. All of these feelings develop into trauma. And trauma is something that no amount of positive thinking from any self-help book can easily overcome. It is oftentimes so deep-seated in the minds of people that any invitation to positivity will get shot down with responses along the lines of, yeah, right. Like that's going to do anything. That doesn't apply to me. If we are truly interested in doing the work of helping people help themselves and find a sense of inner peace, the only way that we are going to do this and to help people achieve this is empowering them to confront the feelings of shame and worthlessness that they have been forced to be subjected to. This is by no means easy work. It means delving into dark emotions with which we ourselves do not want to confront or consider. It means facing unfortunate realities and unfortunate stories that are so very different from our own. It does not work for the faint of heart. But it is work that we as UUs, much as we may not like to admit it, are called to do. Our first and third principles of Unitarian Universalism speak to the inherent worth and dignity of every person and acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth within our congregations. What this means is that the first step in overcoming shame is accepting and truly valuing the individual for who and what they are. Our first principle is an invitation to radical hospitality. It means not placing unwritten or unspoken stipulations on the stranger that they are not fully and completely part of the congregation until they have done a certain thing or displayed a certain attitude. The text of the first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of every person, period, full stop. We do not and cannot attach our own provisions, such as the inherent worth and dignity of every person provided that, or except for. The first principle is also not a simple suggestion. It is the bedrock of all that we hold sacred as UU. To declare that we recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every person is a direct correlation to the Christian idea of imago Dei, the image of God that is present within everyone. For those of us from marginalized communities, we have been told throughout our lives, especially in communities of faith, that our very existence goes against everything that makes up who God supposedly is. This is where feelings of shame begin to develop. We are given the unrealistic, insurmountable reality that we must change everything about ourselves in order to not be estranged from God. It is in these moments that we begin to question whether we will ever be worthy or if it is even worth the emotional work at all. To say that we have inherent worth and dignity is to say that we have always had those aspects of the divine within us, in spite of the fact that the rest of the world wants to tell us how unworthy we are. As UUs, we are declaring to the rest of the world that we are a sanctuary, a place that is set apart, as churches have historically been regarded, where we recognize the divine in every person. And not only the divine within ourselves, but the invitation and the opportunity to draw closer to a divine that is even bigger than our human selves. Yet seeing the divine in every person is one thing. While it is a start in the work of beginning to deconstruct shame, there is more that needs to be done. This is where our third principle comes in: acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth within our congregation. It is one thing to notice and recognize a person as having inherent worth and dignity, but we are invited in the third principle to go deeper and accept people for who they are. This is often a challenge because it forces us to confront people who think, act, talk, and behave differently than what we are used to. It is more than simply welcoming a variety of different cultures and beliefs, as UUs often advertise and on which we pride ourselves. It is engaging with them and creating an intentional community. While this is what we aspire to do as UUs, the reality is that we do not always want to be embracing of what we are unfamiliar with and with what we do not know. Human beings in general are not fans of dealing with the unknown. Yet the beauty of the intentional community that we create as UUs is that it invites all participants into an exploration of that which we hold as sacred. We get to learn from others as they articulate in their own most personal and intimate ways how they connect to something that is beyond themselves and beyond the whole world. It is in this sharing of spiritual practices and learning from each other that we find more connections to each other than we find that we have differences. Creating a sense of connection is one of the ways that we overcome shame. Shame exists as feeling like one is or has done something to alienate themselves from others. By fostering that sense of interconnectedness, we are able to bridge those divisions that are created by feelings of shame. Yet it goes even deeper than that. Intentional community not only takes our uniqueness and diversity with regard to spiritual practices and makes it beautiful, it takes the darkest of emotions and most painful of experiences that one has gone through, and it turns them into an asset. Although the struggles that we have gone through are often a source that feeds into our shame, our journeys, however painful they have been, have also provided us a source of perspective for how we view the world. With all of those unique perspectives comes a unique voice and a unique orientation to the world that informs how we come to understand the things that are bigger than ourselves. It is through the dialogical nature of the intentional community that we form as UUs that we create a platform for those voices to be heard and those perspectives to be seen by others, many of whom, by virtue of unintentional or unwanted privilege, have not been able to see the other side of the coin. It is the inspiration that I draw from Nathan C. Walker's words in the reading for today. Each person that walks into a UU church, each person that takes the wild and crazy leap into the unknown and decides to join our intentional communities serve as personal spiritual trainers to every one of us. And we get the opportunity to do the same for them. Just like Walker implores in the reading, I know that when I step through the door of any of our sacred spaces, I am coming hungry to hear you articulate your beliefs, articulate your faith to the point of having some moral relevance, to know that you are engaged in the moral issues of our time. I am even hungry to hear what makes you afraid. It may cause me to discover that you and I fear similar things, even though I may be too ashamed to admit it. Most importantly, in Walker's words, I want you to know if you feel like you belong and that you feel like you matter, because you do. All of the self-help books that have been created in the past 300 years cannot make up for the value of human connection and human validation. The work of letting go of shame and finding inner peace is not one that can be done in a vacuum. It is achieved by diving into and embracing wholeheartedly the journey that is this intentional community that we create as Unitarian Universalists. So, today, I am calling for us to begin planning the funeral for shame. I recently came across a meme on Facebook, like the late millennial that I am, that had the following quote by Christian author Anne Voskamp. Shame dies when stories are told in safe places. Let me repeat that. Shame dies when stories are told in safe places. The sacred spaces of our UU worship spaces are safe places that we have created for exactly that purpose. Sharing our stories, articulating our perspectives, and allowing for each of our voices to be heard and celebrated. When we step into those spaces, we are entering into environments where shame cannot survive. We allow it to die a slow and natural death and no longer have the power over our lives that it once did. Once shame dies, we are given the chance to be reintroduced to ourselves, the beautiful, vivid, and complex creatures that we are and that we always have been. It is once that relationship is formed that we open the door and make room to allow inner peace to come in, and we find the chance to be whole. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Thank you all so much.
Now Sarah Clave will share a status of our pledge drive.
I hope you were all able to attend the ordination and installation ceremony with our minister, now officially the Reverend Eric Severson. It was beautiful and moving, as many of you have said. He pledged his commitment to us and our fellowship, and we pledged our commitment to his ministry with us. It seems perfectly appropriate that we made these commitments during our stewardship campaign, the time when we make our pledges of commitment to support our fellowship in the coming year. We have now heard from 49 individuals and families who have affirmed their commitment to our fellowship by submitting a pledge form. We are very grateful to each and every one of you for your support and participation. And we need to hear from the rest of you. If the work of this fellowship and the ministry of Eric Severson has value for you, we need you to submit your pledge form now. You can access our pledge material through the October 16 issue of the Candle Flame or by using the link that I will post in the chat. As you see in the graphic, we are within 79% of our money goal. We have commitments of $140,320 that people plan to give in 2021. That leaves us with $37,208 to go to meet our goal. If you have not yet made your pledge, we need to hear from you this coming week. Our finance committee and board worked hard to present us with a lean budget proposal. It would be very difficult to make cuts without having significant impact on our staff and programs. I, the stewardship committee, Alicia Toisen, Fred Thomas, Craig Murchison, Vicki Reidelberger, and Chris Nakamura, and our stewardship volunteers, Tom Bailey, Tim and Janelle Wagner, Don Beck, Marlene Hickman, Maxine Getler, Shannon Sonoris. Thank you again for your very thoughtful consideration.
We affirm the work of this fellowship and its mission through our financial contributions. We continue to rely on you paying your pledges and providing what you would otherwise drop in the collection plate. While our in-service activities may be suspended, our staff continue to work hard to provide the services we need. They and the bills still need to be paid. Please give as generously as you can, and may what you give bring you joy. Please take time to write a check if you wish and mail it to 6220 Jefferson Avenue, Midland, Michigan, 48640. For an online donation option, please stay after the service for instructions. Another option is to set up bank auto pay, which you can arrange by asking our treasurer, Vicki Rother, for the UUFOM checking account number, and then have your bank set up a regular payment for your account. Thank you for your generosity. Let's share now in an offertory prelude, Opus 28, number 15, by Frédéric Chopin, played for us today by Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. Now with your mics muted, please join Melanie in singing our closing hymn, There is a River Flowing in My Soul.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Thank you, Melanie. Our closing words for today are be true, be well, be loving by Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum, who we had a chance to hear from yesterday at Reverend Eric's ordination. We leave this gathered community, but we do not leave our connection, our concerns, our cares for one another. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together, friends, be strong, be well, be true, and be loving. Our service has now ended, but your service has just begun. Go in peace, go in joy, and go in love. Blessed be.
Thank you to everyone who helped make the service possible today. And a special thank you to Matt for leading our service. Thank you all for joining us today. If you can stay to chat, great. If you need to go, we understand. Whatever you may encounter in this coming week, please know that the love of this community goes with you. Until we're together again, many blessings.